Hi everyone. So this is I'm Dr. Kee Boon Pin from Research Training Unit from the Faculty of Medicine. So welcome everyone to this webinar organized by Research Training Unit on high performance computing from data science to discovery. So it's good to see everyone. So I hope that you all stay well and healthy during this MCO period. And we are in the era of big data now, and data seems like a capital for every industry, be it small business to international corporate and also research. So the focus of this webinar today would be to introduce high performance computing facility in UM and to let everyone to have an idea of how this facility can facilitate data in terms of collection, management, and also analysis. So as a scientist or part of the research team, we are constantly engaging in a cycle of making decisions, generating hypotheses, and also running experiment and collecting data. So traditionally, for the amount of data that we generated from the usual experiment, we have no problem to analyze them using a standard computer or workstation from in our office or lab. So, but with the development of more advanced technology, the amount of data we can get from experiment is getting more and more. Okay, so for example, in the past, a full human genome sequence cost around 10 million USD, and then the same amount of money can produce 10,000 of human genome today with the new generation sequencing technology. Okay, so and the caveat is that the massive amount of data can no longer be handled traditionally. So it comes to the need for high performance computing to the aid of the extensive data collection, management, and analysis, which is why we are having the webinar today. So I'm not the speaker, I'm the chair of the seminar today. So we are honored to have invited Dr. Liew to speak for our webinar today. So Dr. Liew obtained his bachelor degree in computer science and master of science from USM and his PhD degree from Edinburgh University. Dr. Liew is also now a senior lecturer in the Faculty of Computer Science and Information Technology, and he's also the head of Data Intensive Computing Center of DICC. So Dr. Liew has involved in many research projects, and with his team, he provided his expertise to develop machine learning algorithm and big data innovation. Okay, so just a general rule of thumb for this webinar. So the agenda would be opening of the program introduction by Dr. Liew, and then it will be followed by three use cases by Dr. Hadieh, Dr. Lee, and myself. And then we have a final wrap up by Dr. Liew as well, and then we'll open up to audience for Q&A. So just in case if you have any question, you can type it in the chat room, and then we'll select some of the questions. If we can't answer all the questions, then we'll select some of the questions to be answered during the Q&A session. And also, if you prefer to ask your question verbally, you can raise your hand using the icon on the bottom right of the screen to raise your hand, and then we'll cue the audience to ask the question. Okay, so without further ado, please welcome Dr. Liew.
Thank you, Dr. Kee. Let me share my screen now. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure whether you see I hope you see the right one. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Kee, for organizing this roadshow. I remember that we had these conversations about 2 months ago, where data-intensive computing centers, we are interested to collect the real computing's demand among all our UN researchers here. We have been conducting the same talks, the same roadshow in Faculty of Science. And of course, we know there's always a high demand from our colleagues from Faculty of Medicine, Faculty of Engineering. So we actually are going one by one. But unfortunately, after we scheduled to have a roadshow in Faculty of Medicine and then start the MCO. well, I think it's good that we change in other ways, that we do it in the webinar basis. So our point is very simple. We know that there's a demand around. We want to collect all this information, and if possible, we will use this information to do for our next capacity planning. As you know, the DICC has been around since 2015, end of 2015. We provide our service mainly at this moment is to the particle physicists, as you can see in this picture here, accelerating science, right? The CERN folks, to the biochemistries community, to some of the pharmacists, and also to the parasitologies groups in FOM. Okay, but of course we believe there are more demands out there. That's why we try to conduct this roadshow today. Oh, the next slides that you see here is about the science paradigms that we're talking about. When we talk about, I remember when I set up the centers in 2015, they call the center as HPC unit, HPC, High Performance Computing. But then I rebranded into a DICC. The reason is very simple. When we talk about HPC, it's just as a tool. While what we are solving now is not only the HPC problems, we are not talking about the tools, but we are talking about the natures of the scientific discovery. You look at the slides here, I briefly mentioned about this 4 scientific paradigms here. The slide is prepared by Tony Hay and the rest. Do you remember one of the greatest database scientists from Microsoft? They've gone missing in the sailing trips, right? The Jim Gray. Because Jim Gray did mention about these 4 interesting observations. They say the science from the empirical paradigms at the very beginning, they talk about observations and natural phenomena, to the theoretical and to the computational science was quite active for the last 2 decades, where a lot of those scientific observations is done through the building up all these models and then through the simulations and then try to prove, right? Prove the a particular science phenomena. So this is how the science is moving. And what we are having now, in fact, it's already started about decades ago, is what we call as e-science, data science, data-driven science, or data-intensive science, where we are talking about a lot of data being captured, being produced by all these instruments, all the simulations, and even the sensors itself. And it need to be processed with the software and then use it for the scientific discovery. So for us is, if I say our DICC is just only work on the HPC and call ourselves as a HPC unit, then basically outside high performance computing, the rest that we are not interested. But which is not true at the moment. At least you see on the data discovery itself, now data cannot be just seen as the input to your simulation. Data should be giving a first-class citizen's status in our computer science, sorry, in all the scientific discovery now. Okay, let me see how to move on to the next slides. Okay. So now I show you one of the example. These slides, I took it from the CERN high performance particle physics meeting about a few years back. And what they mentioned is they are trying to set up a big experiments using very sophisticated and advanced engineering, electricals and engineering folks. They have set up all these sensors, detectors, and then try to do this accelerations of proton beams, and then to detect all these energies through the crystal. A lot of very advanced props been set up. But at the end, once they pull all these data from the electronics, from all these cameras, detectors, what they are doing is actually they inject all this data into the software, into whatever simulations programs that they have, and try to produce some useful data for them to prove their observations. So this is now we're talking about data-driven science, all the way from data capturing. If you look at others domain, you can have the similar things, but maybe not the Large Hadron Colliders detectors in CERN that cost billions of dollars. But maybe it's just as simple as a few smartphones or a few Bluetooth connected, I would say, thermometers, and all these different health gadgets that we have, right? Even your wearable. So we're talking about all different sort of devices connecting, sending data. At the end, is where we fit into the simulations and use it for the scientific discovery. So that's okay. Sorry. So if I try to explain in the simple layman terms, okay? Like in this diagram, what does a researcher want? We don't talk about HPC, DICC, all this scientific paradigm. I just bring back to these 6 very simple questions. I want to run my experiment. I am a researcher. So the 6 questions that I put up here, the first one is, yeah, I'm interested to search for a data set, but where to start and where can I get those data set? For the bioinformaticians, they have been well established for the last few decades, where they have a lot of very good repositories, a lot of like NCBI, EBI, they've done a lot of, put in a lot of effort to set up all these repositories to collect all the data. Fair enough, fine. But how about others' data set? Or how about the data set published by my colleagues? How about the data set that my students, they produce, but I don't know where are they at the moment? So the second is, when I have this data in my research, I should store it. But my question is, where should I store it? And how should I store it? Is there a proper data curation process that I should follow so that the data that I shared, that I stored, I deposit into the repository will be useful? Right, this is the second question. Then the third question is, well, I want to run my experiment, but my computer is not powerful enough. This is the questions that even from FOM's colleagues here, I received it just last week, okay? And also when I talked to Dr. Kee, yeah, I want to run the simulations, but my laptop is not that fast. Is it possible I use a HPC? The answer is yes, the answer is no, depends on what kind of research, what kind of applications that you are trying to run, right? Then the fourth stage will be, I want to analyze my result, but do I have the tools? Or I want to analyze by myself. I don't quite an expert in this data analysis. Can I get this expertise here? And then the fifth is, I want to publish my work. I want to make my data available. Where can I store my data? Right, that's a very good question, right? And then the last one is, yeah, is there a policies that in that actually is guiding us in terms of data curations and long-term data preservation? The last questions regarding the RDM policy, sooner or later, IEEE will review a new set of RDM policy. Now that the policy already approved by the management is in the LPU. Okay, we're waiting for the final approval. So I'll come to this later. So if you look at the questions I raised just now in terms of where should I run my computers, where should I run my computation? These are pictures of all the supercomputer centers in the world. These are the top 10. The recent one, you have the Chinese there, you have the American systems, and you have the Japanese Fujitsu systems as well. So these are all the supercomputers that you see. In we don't have that kind of scale. The most we have is one rack of such infrastructures in But are those infrastructure good enough for us to run the computation? If you look at the performance of the computers over the last 3 decades here, what you are holding nowadays, your smartphone actually is equivalent to a supercomputers in about 20 years ago. Okay, yeah, this is a slide that prepared by Jack Dongara. He's running this high performance computer, or we call supercomputers benchmarking, since the 90s. And you can see the growth of the performance of the supercomputers now. We are no more talking in terms of gigaflops, but we are already reached the petaflops and now in the exaflops. So computer is getting faster, and it can help us to do a lot of interesting simulations and computing. And not only computing itself, the demand for computers increase, but also the data that involved in all this simulation increase as well. Okay, then if you look at these examples here, we are talking about is a CERN simulation. We are talking about moving about 160 petabytes of data in a year across 12 countries, across all these continents in about 200 over sites. So this is considered the largest distributed computing in the world. Okay, but maybe you say, well, we are not running as big as the CERN, but yet we still have our challenge to face as well, right? So how they have done this, they use a lot of computers, connect together, and try to run the simulations simultaneously in all this machine. So it's a big computation, but get sliced, get chopped, and get distributed across all the machine. Okay. Then how about in others domain? If I don't talk about particle physics, let's talk about the seismologies, right? Yeah, this is a very simple workflow to explain what happened in the seismologies environment, where the data collected by all these seismometers are gathered and organized in the archive, and later to be run and analyzed in the supercomputers as you've seen here. This is a sample systems in Munich, Germany, LRZ supercomputer. So this is a real exact workflow that we have worked with a few years back in Berkshire. Okay, and then you look at what is the output here. The output will be very simple graphical visualizations, very simple tools, the portals to display all this information. But all the science, all the details, complicated executions actually happen at the back in all the supercomputers. So this is what we try to explain. If you have a complete workflows that from the point that you start to do data acquisitions, collecting the data, organize for the computing, at the end is how you want to use it. Then if maybe you will say, I am just a clinician, I'm just a scientist. Can I get away from looking at all these supercomputers? We are not really interested in this machine. What we are more interested is how we can draw these interesting conclusions from the data set that we have. In fact, that should happen, right? So if you say, wow, all the example I throw out just now happened in the particle physics, in all this advanced computing, yeah, they have a lot of researchers with huge computational budgets they can afford. But if you look at here, I always show this diagram when I talk about why DICC is set up to support research computing. This is what we call the 80-20 portions of the long tail of science. In science, what we observe is 20% of the project, these are the big projects, is getting 80% of the resources, roughly, and estimations, right? But the remaining 80% of the user, we want to do interesting science discovery, but at the same time, we don't have the luxurious budget as the certain folks at the rest they have. So how to better serve this long tail of science is always the aim of the DICC. Okay, and I give another examples here. This is one of the project that with Institute of Science Biology UM. What we are helping here is we are looking at how to use this. We are supporting them in the sense of process the entire workflows here, in the sense of the moment that drone collecting all the images of the data, then the data will stream back to the cloud and doing the processing in the cloud. And all this image, before we can do this real-time on-device analysis, they need to train the model. And to train the model, before they can train the model, they need to get all these images and do the tagging on the images. You can imagine if I change into another use case, you can have some images you collect from the biomedical imaging devices, and then you can have the experts to do the tagging to mention, okay, these areas is, in this case, is a crops, whether there is a disease and non-disease happen. But if you change to X-ray diagrams or those MRI, then maybe there will be the regions of the cancer cells and those are region not the cancer cells, right? So once you annotate this image, and then the image will put into the machine learning models, and then we can train up the models, and we use this model to do the predictions. So this, in this example here, the DICC provide a platform for them to annotate the image and then use it for the training. Of course, this is a project we just collaborate with our colleagues from Manchester Metropolitan University. Okay, so this is one example how in the science biologists they can use it. But if you come back to medical field, you can see as the other examples that you can throw here is the use of IoT devices at home to do a remote patients monitoring. This is a diagram, this is a proposal we put up a few years back with Prof. Lucy and Adina and Monajemi and a couple of colleagues from FOM. It didn't get sponsored at the end, but it's a very good demonstration of how this IoT and supercomputers can put into the same pictures and to serve the science, right? If you look at examples here, we're talking about a use case where all this multiple variable device, we use it to do the monitoring. Data will be directly streamed into the cloud computing facilities where it's being analyzed in the data centers using all the supercomputers. Now, what is more important, the output from these simulations actually at the end will be used automatically trigger alarm the physicians in the clinicians in the hospital or to the local authorities. In this case is on controlling the dengue. Okay, this is a very good use case. Unfortunately, it was well accepted by the British Council, by the UK, but not for the local, the Malaysians. It's a matching fund, so we didn't get the support from the Malaysian part, so it didn't work out at the end. But if you look at these examples here, today we just have a system launch in UMMC. The UM eHealth group have done a very good job to come up with systems where the remote patients can use their smartphone, and then through the interactions with the chatbot, collecting some data, and the data will then be visualized through the dashboard by the clinicians to look at the patient's performance, right? So the patient's medical status. We can see the similar things will happen in others' domain, in others' applications as well. Okay. Then our role is, at the end, is what kind of computing, if you have any applications can be used, if you have any simulations that need to be run on the supercomputers, if you have a details and extensive data analysis pipeline need to be processed. Yeah, this is what DICC can help. So if you want to hear, now I pass the sessions to Hadieh to share with you some of the examples how to use the high performance computing in discovery. For her, I think the use case is related to COVID. So I pass it to you, Hadieh.
Thank you, Dr. Liew. Can everybody hear my voice? Yes. Can you hear my voice, Dr.?
No problem. Okay. I can hear.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. And today I'm going to share with you the use case of one of the important use case of high performance computing, which is COVID-19. Dr. Liew,
sorry, I tried to go back to the slide. Yes, this one.
Okay, okay. Yeah. So next slide, please. So as we know, COVID-19 is an RNA virus, and when it enters the host cell, the RNA hijacks. Actually, the virus that hijacks the host cell organelles and organs to reproduce the virus itself. And in my case study, one of the target viral enzyme is MPRO, which I'm sure you're familiar with. This is the enzyme that is in charge of post protein synthesis processing of the after the viral protein is being synthesized by hijacking the ribosome of the host cell. This enzyme, which is in the virus package, it will process the synthesized protein, and it cuts into different parts and kind of in charge of processing the new viral proteins that will be used to assemble the new virus, and then keep multiplying and multiplying until they infect the whole body. So targeting this enzyme is very, very important in, it's not for the prevention, but for cure. And there are a lot of drugs available, and they're actually PDA approved and PDA, which are also under the test. These kind of drugs, they're actually being tested for this specific enzyme using a lot of methods. One of them is molecular docking, which uses the molecular mechanic force field, a classical force field that predicts the interaction of certain drugs with this enzyme that would inhibit the enzyme's activity. So there are more than 1,000 drugs that are being tested using molecular docking. If you're not familiar with the term molecular docking, it looks for the best interaction of the drug with the enzyme. And it's not that accurate because it uses classical force field. It doesn't really uses the interaction of the electronic structure interaction. So with that, they predict that certain drugs will interact with certain parts of the enzyme. So I have next slide, please. So I have they have narrowed down to around 12 drugs, different types of drugs, which itself is narrowed down to 7. And what we have done in the DICC is we model the whole enzyme, the heart-shaped enzyme that you see in the previous slide, which is really large. It's around 5,000 atoms. And we calculate we do electronic structure calculation, which is much, much more accurate than what has been done so far on the interaction of the drug with the enzyme. So in the electronic structure calculation, we have to consider the interaction of the electrons of the atoms with the enzyme. And as a computational chemist, I'm more interested in electronic interaction and how the drug is actually interacting with the enzyme, which gives us more accurate results. But electronic interaction calculation requires intensive computation, which is highly computationally expensive. That's why usually people don't do this kind of calculation on large molecules, especially those that are 5,000 atoms plus. So, but in the DICC, we were able to do the calculation by layering the structure into classical layer and quantum mechanical layer, which the quantum mechanical layer involves a drug and the amino acid residues of the enzyme around the drug that are interacting with the drug. This is very important because the more interaction we have, the more strongly the drug is attached to the enzyme and the better it inhibits the enzyme activity. So it is impossible to predict this kind of interaction accurately with a classical force field, which most researchers have done, because we have hydrogen bonding interaction. And for hydrogen bonding interaction, we need to calculate the electronic structure interaction of the molecule. So we have to use ab initio method. So with this, we have modeled. With this method, we have modeled 7 different drugs interacting with the enzyme. 7 different drugs that have been proposed by the researchers, those who have done molecular docking calculation. We have also done preliminary molecular docking calculations, and then we propose those kind of interactions, bring it into the DICC high performance computing, and we did the ab initio calculation. For each calculation, it took around 2 to 3 weeks in order to finish the optimization itself. And after the first set of calculation, we target the amino acid residues around the drug. And then we change those amino acid residues as well, as you can see in the picture, into quantum mechanical level, which is more accurate and more computationally expensive. So by time we keep increasing the size of the highly expensive quantum calculations of the interaction of the drug with the rest of the enzyme. So the rest of the enzyme is still being considered with classical mechanics calculations. So from these 7 drugs, we were able to narrow down to 3 drugs. And next slide, please. Okay, this is the size of the whole enzyme. So we could narrow down to three different drugs, N3, epsilon, and PX12, which are the N3 and PX12. They are already been proposed as having a very good interaction. And here we have also calculated the interaction energy of epsilon, which is actually gives us a promising results that these 3 drugs, they can have a very good and a strong interaction with the enzyme, and they can have a good inhibiting power. N3 and epsilon, I think N3 is PDA approved, but epsilon and PX12, if I'm not mistaken, because I'm not a medical, I don't have a medical background, I'm just interested in the biochemistry and the interaction of the molecule with the enzyme. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, epsilon is still on the trial. PX12 is also on the trial, and they're already being tested on the patients. But as you know, in different parts of the world, these tests give different results. But the results of this research can help for those who are actually searching for different possible drugs. In order to test these drugs, PX12 is actually, it's not, it doesn't have a side effect. It's actually a drug that is being used for cancer patients, if I'm not mistaken. And these drugs are actually not, they don't have severe side effects. And when you're in a life-death kind of situation, it's very, this kind of emergency it can help actually during the emergency. It can help the medical doctors in order to make the decision. So this is the size of the enzyme that we have used to do the calculation using the DICC high performance computing. And without the HPC, we are actually unable to do this size. I mean, this massive size of the molecule, which takes a long time to even open the file. So this is actually one of the very helpful times that I actually very grateful, because without high performance computing, we were not able to do this kind of calculation. And as you can see, I think from next slide, is it visible? Yes. If we move from top left to the bottom right, in the top left, this is actually where we did the calculation on the drug using ab initio calculation, quantum mechanical laws of motion and interaction of the electrons. If we want to have high accuracy and at the same time increase the size of our system, there is no way a personal computer can actually do the job, and we really need a supercomputer in order to be able to perform the calculation and get the accurate result that we need. So without high performance computing, I don't think doing this kind of calculation is possible. So that is my end of my presentation today.
Okay, thank you, Hadieh. So Yukong, you want to take over from here?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just let me, I just have one page slide. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I just want to share, I think after Hadieh's presentation, mine is such a simple one, I feel almost embarrassed to share it. But I'll just share it because I really do want to let people know how wonderful it has been to work with Chee-san and his team at DICC on this project that I have. Okay, so this project is actually called the INIA-SEER project. It stands for the Early Nutrition E-Academy for Southeast Asia. It's actually the principal investigator is Prof. Chris Bui from pediatrics, and the team is comprised of mostly pediatricians as well as two of us from the primary care medicine department. So it is a project that involves a Southeast Asian platform of EU, Thai, and Malaysian partners. It was funded by the Erasmus Plus agency as a capacity building project. And what it aimed to do is actually to develop and build up an e-learning capacity to deliver early nutrition education for practicing doctors in Southeast Asia. So this project had a number of computing requirements. Of course, none of them are very complex or require very high power computing, but there was an element of data curation there, because one of the project requirements was that we needed a local server to host media elements from EU, Malaysia, and Thai partners on this side of the world, and not in the German coordinators side. So because of this, a budget of about 180,000, I think, ringgit was given to the university to purchase servers. And so this involves server purchasing, installation, maintenance, and resource sharing. And of course, you can imagine that clinicians, as well as even myself, have no idea about this kind of how to navigate these IT systems and the requirements that are needed. So we got in touch with Chee-san at DICC, and very quickly he was able to propose a way to work out this project in terms of the server requirements. So at the bottom of the screen, you can see the three things that we did. Number one, he helped us to host the servers, which are now there at the HPC center at IEEE, DICC actually, I should say, at IEEE. So that picture, that small picture, is actually the actual servers that we purchased, 4 units of high-powered servers amounting to about 180,000 ringgit. The second thing that DICC helped us to do in terms of data curation was they recognized that we needed a very user-friendly way of uploading our media elements, which comprise videos, pictures, graphs, files onto an easy to use platform. So they developed a website. You see there, umtube.dicc.um.edu.my, and he was kind enough even to come over to meet the consortium partners and to explain this website to them when they had an annual meeting at UKM. So Chee and his colleague from DICC came over and met the consortium leaders. And lastly, I think it's important, it was really important for us as we were working on purchasing to have someone who has familiarity with the navigation of the e-procurement process for IT purchasing. Already, this was the first IT project that e-learning project I was working on. And every project since then has already encountered a number of hiccups in terms of purchasing, because I think one is actually getting the technical specifications ready on e-procurement is not an easy job. So Chee and his team have a lot of expertise, and they're always very friendly and willing to help us with that. So I think that's all for this project. I'll stop sharing my screen now. And I just want to thank Chee and his team for being such excellent collaborators. Okay, thanks, Chee.
You're welcome. Dr. Kee?
Yeah. Okay, wait a moment, I will just share my screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Liew, for the introduction to HPC. One of your slides that listed the requirement, the request for the researchers. Really, I think that's what really in my mind is like how DICC can help to run my projects, and then how DICC can help to like incorporate some of the analysis into the server, and then also like how I can manage such massive amount of data. So for my case is that it's just a little background of myself. So actually my research area is more on molecular genetics, genetic mutation, and so genetic association study. So basically the techniques that I use are molecular typing, PCR, Sanger sequencing. So usually we have no problem analyzing the data, because relatively the amount of data generated from these kind of techniques are actually still manageable. But then with all the technology, then now our team move on to next generation sequencing. And then in more of the first NGS project that we are handling now is on sequencing of several genes for a patient cohort. So we did a pilot study early of this year, and then we received the amount of data from the service provider, which is about 100 gig. And then we thought, okay, that should be okay. We can try to analyze on a standard workstation in the office. And then apparently when we load all the data to the computer, we can't even analyze 4 samples concurrently on a standard desktop. So so that's the problem that we face from the NGS research. So then I actually talked to Prof. CJ, and the Prof. CJ suggested me to meet Dr. Liew to see if they can provide any solution to this. So actually, before I met Dr. Liew, then our team actually come up with some alternative. So we thought to purchase a high-spec server for storage and also analysis of the NGS data, which then we received a quotation that quoted us around 70K just for the server, and then without any software or program to be used for the genomic analysis. So 70K is not a small amount, especially for difficult time like this for research. So, and then we also thought of another alternative is to access to existing high-spec computers in HIR in UM. So the problem is that the convenience and feasibility to access the facility could be a problem because the travel back and forth from HIR between HIR and also FOM, sometimes it could be quite troublesome, especially for the student, because parking is an issue in UM, especially in FOM. Okay, and then also the maintenance and technical issue pertaining to computer setup and etc. So early this year, I had a meeting with Dr. Liew and his team in DICC. So we discussed about the problem I have with the NGS project, and then he actually proposed some of the solutions to my problems. Okay, so there are three solutions in terms of storage, computing power, and also accessibility of the data, as suggested by Dr. Liew and teams. So in terms of storage, Dr. Liew actually suggested to subscribe to cloud storage, whereby the data can be stored without physical drive, and is also accessible anywhere as long as we have internet. And when it comes to the computing power, I'm not sure whether the term embed is correct, but Dr. Liew suggested to embed the analytical programs to adapt that into the DICC server, and then we can then access and do our analysis online by accessing the DICC server through internet connection. So I think that would be very feasible, because then we wouldn't need to really purchase a high-spec computer and place it in the lab just for the analysis part. And then as long as we have internet, then we can actually do it even at home during like MCO period like now. Okay, and also the accessibility of the data, whereby the data storage and analysis can be done anywhere, which I think is really convenient. However, this is just a plan developed together with Dr. Liew and us, and then we have further meeting later to materialize all this. So I think that's all from me. Is there any question from the participants? Because I saw someone raise hand just now. Is there any question? Dr. Liew.
Yes.
Okay, there's one question. If the data is stored in the cloud, wouldn't it need to be downloaded for analysis?
Okay, thank you for these questions. Depends on where is the analysis work conducted. If we are talking about when we talk about the cloud, right? The cloud, you can refer to the private cloud. You also can refer to public cloud. Those public cloud is like examples of the Azure, Amazon, or Malaysia, we have DigitalOcean, where they provide this pay as you go service model for you to rent a servers, to rent some storage space in the cloud, and then for you to, if you rent the storage space just like Google Drive, right, you actually can use it to store. But if you look at this DigitalOcean, Azure, and also the Amazon, AWS, they allow you to run the computations as well. You actually can, the cloud itself can refer to storage, computings, and other services as well. You look at DICC, if possible, we would like to provide such environments where you store your data. You first uploaded all your data, you load your data into the DICC. At the current model is all your data in the user home directories. And then when you try to run your simulations, you load the directories into the Scratch directory, which is a high performance file storage that link together with the clusters, and then you run a simulation. And then later the data will be moved back to the user home directory. So the question is whether the data stored in the cloud or downloaded for the analysis. It depends on what sort of analysis that you're referring to. If the analysis itself is those number crunching, require HPC, and then having the applications, the user applications that use, like Kee mentioned just now, to set up and deploy in the cloud itself, and then you actually can run the analysis there. However, also this something that we discovered with Boon Pin as well during his visit to DICC that day. Some of the analysis by the users is require the visualizing it using the local browser, right? Like the Kee, you remember what's the name of the systems that you were used that day?
Base space.
Base space. Okay, that one actually the calculation itself is not that compute intensive. Sorry, I would say the parts that would be Dr. Kee's interested is on visualize it, right? But when you visualize it, you're accessed through your browser, and the limitation is actually by the local machine as well, because in the browser, you're using a local GPU processors to render the entire image. That one actually nothing much the HPC can help. But if you talk about let's say for the alignment process, for the entire sequencing process, the analysis part, yes, that one can be done in the cloud, and that one can leverage the powers of the clusters and move whatever computational tasks from your computers into the cluster. The one definitely is a yes. But we come to, if let's say require some using some portals to visualize the molecules, to visualize, that is the part I would say is difficult. The one, the HPC not really helping a lot, because of visualization is using a local browsers, which is using the desktop or your laptop power.
Okay, so totally just an extension from this question, right? So I think many of us also concerned about the data safety when it comes to like storage in either DICC server or the cloud storage. Can you explain a little bit on this issue?
Okay. First of all, for your information, we at the moment DICC we don't do any cloud storage for the user. Whatever storage available, that one is just for the high performance computers. Mean before you can run analysis on our clusters, you load your data into the file systems, right? That one is not a cloud service like OneDrive or Google Drive. We used to run the service, but at the end we figure out there's very limited numbers of the staff and the resources. We don't want to commit into a service, but at the end we don't have the capacity to maintain the qualities. So we stop the service for the cloud at the moment. In the futures, whether we will bring back the cloud storage, I would say yes, if we stabilize the whatever HPC services we have at the moment, and then we recruit more staff. Then the question back to the safety. Okay, safety you can view it from a different several aspect. Okay, first of all is when you upload your data from your local machines into the cloud itself. The entire channels if the channel is not being encrypted, that is actually one of security threat possible will happen, right? And everything into the servers depends on the server itself. If you talk about those public servers like Amazon, like Azure, they are actually providing this service as a paid service, with the data security also as a paid service. I will say storing data in the Amazon and in the Azure is way safer than you store it in, sorry to say that, in DICC or in PDM. They are taking a lot of money from the users to store the data, and in terms of security, they can ensure you the data is safe there. We always say it's safer in the Amazon rather than in your home file directory, which is true. And then for the DICC, the reason why we bring down the storage service is because of we don't have the time to look into the data security issue at the moment. That's why we don't want the users to store the data at the end, then the risk. They have this concern about whether data is secure or not secure. When that's a reason, actually, one of the reasons the DICC bring down our storage service. But if you, let's say you opt for Amazon, you opt for the DigitalOcean, you opt for the Azure, yes, if you follow all the recommendations set up by them, security is, I would say, is ensured. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Liew. So there's one question by Prof. Chan Yok Fan. So she asked about what kind of software can be installed on DICC server, and then what are the requirements for that?
Okay. Good questions. Sorry, Yokfan, so far your Genesis application has not yet been installed. Jikang is looking into that. Yes, so far we have a lot of applications, mainly from the science faculty. We have a lot of molecular simulations, a lot of those applications. We have a complete list. If possible, later, Jikang, can you send the link here to the list of applications that they can click from our conference? I cannot tell how many software are there, but there's a long list of the software. If you've found that the software that you want, that you require, is not in DICC, you actually can request so that our team will look into it. Today, together with me, I have another 3 colleagues. You have seen Hadieh just now. Hadieh, she's from the science background, is a postdoc, and then she joined us. So she's the one that a new staff joining us about 6 months ago. Then the second one is actually Jikang. Jikang is the real HPC guys here. He's the one that set up, access all the applications, set up to the deployment, doing the test run, and then do the training for the users, and then bring the users into the HPC. He has conducted the workshop for Su Chin team before she left and joined NIH. Yeah. Okay. So similar, if let's say later he's set up for your funds, for teams and whatever colleagues from FOM, we'll go through the same process again, so that we'll do this orientation and bring you into the DICC world. Okay, so you can look at the list here on HPC plus pilot plus test documentation. You can just share. You can look at the list of applications currently already be installed. Okay, and regarding these 2 applications, one by Prof. Chan teams, one is by Dr. Kee's team. Yes, currently Jika is looking into this few application and see what is the best ways of deploying in our HPC device. Okay, and the last one that you see here, my last colleague is actually Kengi. He's the one that corrected by mistake just now, sending the right surveys to the team through the chat. The chat panels here. Okay, Kengi is the infrastructure and also the network guy. He's the one that assures the infrastructures, the setup, everything is in a good place, and also the network access. As most of you, I will say none of you actually bring your data to DICC in your thumb drive and ask us to load. You are actually sending everything through the network into the machines. He's the master behind all this process. Okay, so all 4 of them, if you have any questions, you can ask them, and you also can ask us. So now the questions for the Prof. Chan, please, you look at the conference link sent by Jikang. Okay, yes, Dr. Kee.
Yeah. Okay, there's one more question from Dr. Tan. She asked about, could we know what kind of access is possible to the computer resources? Is it like shell access?
Okay, what we are running now is a clusters. Clusters, you can imagine, it's like a lot of machines connect together, and you don't SSH have a shell access to the individual machine, right? It's run as a batch processors where you write a script, you submit to the scheduler will get the jobs, what you want to run, and then you go to deploy, and then go to schedule on all this. Means they're handling all this parallel processing for you. But in the new systems, in this pilot test bed that we have set up now, yes, it do support an interactive session where you can request, then you have a shell access, you log in, you can have a live interactions through this CLI command line interface with the machine itself. Yes, so both the shell access using interactive machine and also a batch processor. Batch processing. So both mode actually is currently supported in our testbed. One important, currently there is no GUI or we say data visualization node setup. If you look at a lot of the applications from FOM that we noticed from Dr. Kee and also from Prof. Chan, a lot of those applications require a graphic user interface. You cannot, at the moment, we don't support like you remotely come in and then you have this external session. You can have a graphical interaction using GUI to interact with the machine. So far, it's only either the batch scheduler or the CLI. But whether in the futures can we support, I don't want to promise anything, but we are looking into that possibility as well. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's another question by YE.
Mm-hmm.
So he asks about the maintenance of the cloud, and then what are the chances of data getting corrupted or missing?
Okay, if you look into those public cloud out there, when they provide the storage to you, let's say I use Amazon or I use Azure as example, you see is let's say you put a file into the Amazon S3. What you see is you have a data in the bucket, right? But actually physically the data system-wise is already been replicated across multiple machine, and the data itself on the machine itself, they might already set up a RAID systems to do the redundancy for you. So whatever things that you draw and you put into those public network, actually it won't be corrupted. It will be there as long as you pay them, right? That is the model. I would say the data availability itself is not a problem, and the data always is there because of replications happen. And if you draw your data, let's say for your simulations to run in DICC, when user uploaded any of their data set into the home directory in DICC, the data itself is already been replicated. You have 3 copies for every single data that you have. On means physically, there are 3 disks storing the same piece of information. That's why you always say, if you go to HPC terms, they will say, what is a usable storage space? What is the storage capacity? If I want to store 100 terabytes of data, in DICC, we are purchasing 300 terabytes of storage. Then we set up this replications control at the back, so the data will be automatically cloned to another 2 machines. Every single data you have is actually have 3 replica. If you ask me the chances for the data completely lost, yes, IEEE burned down and all the machines gone, then data is missing. That's for the DICC perspective, right? But if you look at the public cloud, they have a very smart algorithms and also the carefully designed so the data is replicated across a different region. For instance, if in Singapore itself, the Amazon data center in Singapore, they would run on 2 different regions. The data is duplicated across 2 regions, where these 2 regions, you have different power supplies, different vendors. Means one side blackout, the other side is still running. Those are professional public cloud. They go up to that level. That's why they can guarantee you the high availability, 99.999999999, 11 availability is very high. Okay. As for DICC, sorry, we don't promise up to that level, but all the user data before you go to the cluster, you copy into your home directory. We only can assure you that the data is being replicated into 3 copies. That is regarding the data availability. Okay.
Okay.
Mm.
I think for the maintenance of the data on the cloud, I think that still depends on this the cloud storage service provider.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the second question, what are the procedures in applying to use the facility?
Okay. So far at this moment, what we are running now is the HPC service. To use it is very simple. You just need to go to our website. There's a form creating an account. You create an account. Jikam, can you help me to put the links here? Once you create the account, then you specify what kind of applications you want to run, and then your usage. Okay. If lecturers, no problem, you just use your own contact. But if it's the students, we will recommend the students to always put their lecturer, your supervisors as a referee, so that we know whose students is it. Then you make a request, then we will create an account for you. We will look at what is the applications you want to run. If you are using the same application as others, that's why you look at Su-Jing's examples, we get the Chime install, and it's used by the entire group. So we need to actually reinstall for every single users. We need to do is create an account for every single members of her lab. Then we will send the materials for you, like the simple orientations and show you a welcoming kit, what you need to do, and then how to access your storage, how to upload, and then how to run. We even give you like the samples, submission scripts, how you can submit your job. Okay, so it's very simple. Go to this website and fill out. Free. Very good question. But to be honest with you, if I say my service is a paid service, how many participants left? Now we have 40. If I say it's a paid service, maybe I will reduce to 4 only. right? Me and Kee and my team here. To be honest with you, in long run, HPC, what we are planning is actually is a paid service, not asking to use your own money to pay. Why I say that? For your information, the server, the cluster that we are running now is purchased by back in 2013. It's a 7 years old machine. If you look at the HPC centers out there, normally the production systems, they refresh it every 3 years. They can do that because they have a huge budget to do this hardware refresh. And one of the way they get the budget is they work together with the researcher. Whenever researcher, they want to write a grant proposal, when they talk about the HPC requirement, the computing requirement and the storage requirement, then they will talk to the HPC centers. And HPC centers say, okay, based on your requirement, based on your project scale, you require like how many CPU hours of computational times plus how many terabytes of disk. Then the cost will actually be put into the proposal itself. So when the funders, they fund the project, salary, all the costs will go to the researcher themselves, but the money for the hardware will actually go to the centers, so the centers can use the money to refresh the hardware. So indirectly, actually, you already pay for the service, just not using your own money, using the the funders' money. That is actually what we are thinking of. If that model will work. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So I'm not charging you at this moment, but if you ask me in long run, yes. We were thinking of a model to charge it. Reason is so that we can get the money to continue sustain and do the maintenance for the hardware. At the moment, as I told you, we still using the machines purchased about 7 years ago. All right, but no worry. Today you fill out the form. I would request you to put in your credit card. So feel free to make a request, and well, we will see your application is it already in the systems. If not, then whether how long we can bring it in. So far, Jika is handling that. All right. Who asked the question just now? Oh, Nabila. Okay. For Liew, yes, the list of software is already there. You can check it out. Okay. If it's not there, then just fill out the form and let us know. We won't guarantee we can give you immediate treatment, then get your system installed and deployed by tomorrow. We can't do that. As you say, there's only 4 of us in the team. All right. But if we would go through the proper process, we will first test in our test machine, the deployment environment, before we bring into the production. For information, we have the production cluster, and also we have our testbed. Testbed is where we need to test a new application, see whether it is suitable, whether the installations is optimized or not, before we bring into the production system. This is to avoid any harm to the production system because of testing of a new software. So it will take. That's why there's a reason it will take some time. But at the end, we guarantee the fault tolerance being well taken care of by DICC. Okay.
Thanks, Dr. Liew. I think like for most of the participants here, they are here because they actually want to know like how DICC can assist in their research, and like myself, I think DICC can actually assist our research in many aspects, like from medical to crop to physics. So if the participants, if they have any questions or queries that they want to ask, they can you all can actually email or contact DICC or Dr. Liew. Or if you are unable to contact them, then maybe you can can ask research office to help to bridge the communication. Yeah.
Sure.
So is there any more question?
I just a matter of curiosity, how many of our colleagues from FOM already using any of those public cloud service, Amazon or Azure, to store your data and also to do the computation?
Myself, I haven't, because I just started the pilot study, so the data is still I'm actually using the one that is provided by Illumina. So the base rate is actually the service also consists of the storage part lah. So they allow us to store some of the data in the analysis, the cloud analysis system already. So I think that's considered as part of the cloud storage. Yeah.
Okay.
But
okay.
I'm not sure about others.
I see. I see. The as I mentioned several times already, at this moment, DICC only can afford to focus on one service, the HPC. But later, DICC will become the data custodian. We try to support the resource data management team to set up the repository for all the users to archive, to deposit, and curate the data. The service will be provided by another new unit from IEEE. At this moment, the unit is still in the process of setting up. I'm not sure the name, what they will call it, but most likely they were doing the data stewardship work, where they will assist the users in terms of they provide the support for the entire data curation process, and they will teach the user how to get your data, how you can do this kind of QC control, add the proper metadata, and then you can deposit and archive it into the repository. The work should come in I think by this year it should come up. Then all the requests for having the data repository will be solved. But at this moment, DICC, we don't provide anything because of the unit is not yet been established. Okay.
Yeah. So, Dr. Liew, like in what situation? Because like there are so many things that DICC can help. Like in what situation that you think that the user should approach DICC for help with their data management? Like for my case, it would be like when I first encountered the problem whereby my standard workstation in my office cannot handle like even up to 4 samples analysis, then I know that okay, my computer is out. I have not sufficient computing power to do my analysis. Then I approached you. So like for other researchers in like in what kind of situation that they should think of DICC?
Okay, if I think a lot of us have some experience when we study or abroad, or when our collaborators say, okay, we are running this analysis pipeline in our HPC, right? And this is the analysis pipeline, one of the process. Of course, at the end you visualize the data, right? But before that, you do this analysis, and those analysis is require your colleagues say we bring into our supercomputers to run the analysis. Yeah, those actually is the I would say the example of the work that actually we can do. Means that analysis part, when you require large numbers of nodes for the computing, DICC is the one. But if you're talking about my Adobe Photoshop is very slow on my laptop, can I write on your supercomputer? Then the answer is no, because of the kind of software, it's not really can whether the use of HPC will help or not. So it depends. As I say, easy is depends on your experience with your colleagues or with your collaborators. If you know that the applications can be further speed up using clusters HPC, then please come to contact with us. We are very happy to help out.
Okay.
All right.
So it should be the scenario whereby they are very overwhelmed by the massive amount of data, and then it would take like almost forever to finish analyzing all the data. Then they can approach the DICC for the HPC service, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or when you run it, it take like days on your desktop, on your workstation. Maybe that is a good sign, right?
Yeah. Because like the molecular docking
Hadieh,
done by Dr. Hadieh. So like in my lab also, we used to do some molecular docking on the normal workstation. So I just want to know like how different is it like when we do it in DICC compared to the one that we do on our standard workstation?
In the very simple terms, right? Depends on the size that you are looking at. If you in your workstation, you use about 4 CPUs to run it. Depends on what is the chipset you're running. Let's say you're having a Intel i5, Intel i7, you can have 4 cores, maximum 8 CPUs to run the particular simulation. When you come over here, you're talking about is 300-400 CPUs running concurrently. So it's the numbers of the CPUs make the difference.
Okay. So then the speed lah.
Yes, then the speed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If you talk about molecular docking, then it is. But yeah, if you're having a sequential pipeline, then you cannot have a lot of parallelism being deployed. So it's actually depend. But
Okay.
molecular dockings, yeah, this is our process. Definitely HPC will help.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Any more other questions for Dr. Liew or his team? If no, then Dr. Liew, would you like to quickly wrap up?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let me share my screens again. This is the first time I'm using the Google presentations in the Zoom. So just like I try to switch back to the chat programs, I cannot find it. Okay, this is the one. Okay. Go for the. Okay, if you look at the some of the okay, I throw a lot of terms just now, right? And all these different computing. We see a lot of different computing concepts. We're talking about like clusters computing, grid computing, cloud computing, to the latest one, IoT, or they call edge computing. The computing paradigm has been changing. It's changing a lot, and it's changing very fast. Those days, it take about 20 years to see the things change a little bit, but now, well, it's the other way around. You see, 1 year, you have like 20 folds of the changes happen. In terms of DICC, yes, we have 352 cores computers interconnected on a very high-speed network for these clusters. And for some of the applications, we try to help them in terms of connecting it to the global grid, right? So this is some of the examples that we are doing. And then sometimes people say, why is HPC, why not HTC, high throughput computing? A lot of these computing terms, if you look at it, I will say as a domain expert, as a domain user, let's not talk about that. Let's do something simple, okay? Domain expert, your core competency, your focus is on, I want to run my simulation. I want to look at my gene set. I want to look at these particular problems, right? Not on this sophisticated computing stuff. The computing perspective, we let the engineers to do that, okay? We let the computer science, all these engineers to do that. But at the same time, if you say, I have this data set, can DICC help us to analyze it? I will say, sorry, we are not the data analysis expert that you see in the middle, okay? But we do have a lot of very good colleagues, those doing bioinformatics. I see some of them in the participant list today, and also some from our Science Mathematical Institute, like Dr. Kang. They'll be working closely with the domain experts to help them do the data analysis work. So if we let the ITs go to the ITs engineers, this analysis by the bioinformaticians and the domain experts, you will live comfortably in your own domain problems. Then I would say we can excel very well. Okay, so this is the idea we call as the hourglass model of this data intensive architecture. Okay, then if you look at DICC, our service since December 2015 always focus on the operations and then getting all these applications deployed and run, and at the same time provide consultations and training. Ultimately, the last one, which is what we hope to do, is we can offer all this computation as a service through the cloud model. We have all this as a service, right? Infrastructure as a service, storage as a service. We are offering this computation as a service. Okay, and this is a team. Just now, I think you've seen Hadieh, Jika, and Kengi, and we have some of our alumni. Amjad now is in the German Supercomputing Center. Imda is now in Japan. Eugene and Raisins, they are now setting up their own business, own companies out there. All the while, there's only very handful of us to provide a service. So sometimes it will take a longer process for us to respond because of we need to go through every single bit, right, for the setup and for the testing. If you have any problems, feel free to drop us an email. I think most of you, I just put my email address there. You can email us, and you also can see my contact numbers on the website. I don't know who put it there. I think it's Jikang or Kengi last time. Anyway, you can see my contact numbers. You can contact us, or I really strongly encourage Dr. Kee to gather all these requirements from FOM. I see a lot of those requirements actually will come in and can be solved if FOM itself has a small IT team and with some resources. Example, a lot of those visualization, if you really need, then you might need to talk to CJ to see whether there's a possibility to have several workstations for this data visualizations happen in FOM. So maybe Dr. Kee can help to consolidate the requirements in DICC, so that next round when I discuss with CJ on the computational demand from FOM, then we can have some ideas and have some figures with us.
Yeah, sure. Definitely, this is one thing that FOM is working towards. So to consolidate the demand or the requirement for HPC from the faculty members. And then sometimes the problem is that they don't know what they want. And then they don't know whether, what kind of requirement, what kind of demand that they can make. So that's why I think this roadshow is actually very beneficial to everyone in the faculty and the university. At least then they have an idea like, in what situation then they should think of DICC and what kind of services that they can expect from DICC as well.
Yeah. So thank you very, that's very good. I think I agree, we should try to consolidate all these requirements together, right? Telling us what you need to the research office and also to the DICC. Well, very last things here. Really thank you for those who already filled out the survey form. For information, this round we are doing the roadshow is mainly to gather the demand. You want to know roughly how many users in UM require the HPC, and what kind of a usage you need for your HPC. The next round, in a couple of months' time, we'll come back to FOM again on the requirement studies. Okay. So it's two things. Demand is to know that how many of us out there require to use it, so that we can plan for the capacity of the HPC. But the next round we will go to very details on requirements on what kind of applications, usage, how many users in the more detailed stage. If you don't want to wait until then, if you have anything urgent, always feel free to visit us and drop us an email. All right, and I really thank you, Dr. Kee, for setting up a webinar today.
Thanks for the very, very interesting talk on the HPC. That's really informative. So, Dr. Liew, with your permission, can we then modify the record and the recording, and then we send it to all the participants in this webinar?
Sure, no problem.
Yeah. Okay. So. So I think that's all for the webinar. Thank you very much, Dr. Liew and the team. So if you have any further question, and then you can approach Dr. Liew or the FOM research office. Okay, so thanks, and hope to see everyone for the next webinar very soon. So thanks. Have a good time.